What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today I want to talk about the Nintendo Switch, but specifically I want to do a deep dive into its sales numbers and try and answer a mystery I hear a lot of people talking about, which is why is this thing still selling so hot? Now, I think what a lot of people are trying to get at is the fact that 2018 and 2017 have been very, very different years for the Nintendo Switch. When this thing first launched, almost every single week we're getting a giant, crazy release like Mario or Zelda, or a really quirky indie game like Golf Story that was out there to blow your mind and impress you. Whereas 2018 has certainly been a lighter catalog. Yeah, we got stuff like Hey You Pikachu coming out soon, and of course Octopath Traveler, but for the most part, it's just been really, really good ports. But despite the fact that this is such a different release quarter, it seems like people are still buying this thing like crazy. Almost every single week you see 10,000 people buying a Nintendo Switch. But why is this? Honestly, I think it comes down to a variety of factors, but a big part of it is the fact that Nintendo is focusing on a totally different strategy than they ever have before. So in the past, Nintendo has talked about the fact that they don't really see other game companies as rivals or competition, and this is something that I think has occasionally backfired. What I mean by that is, let's take a look at the Wii U era. Now obviously, the Wii U bombed bad. It didn't sell, nobody was interested in it, and there was a big issue with the fact that third-party developers weren't really on board with trying to make games for it. And I think that part of it comes down to the fact that Nintendo's marketing and imaging of it was very lackluster. They never really came out and explained what the Wii U was, why you should care about it, and why you need one to game. And I think that was a giant problem. But there was the secondary part about the fact that they never really decided to dig into Xbox 360 or PS3. They kind of just sat back and watched all the cards fall, and then made their move afterward. And I do think that this was something that didn't go as smoothly as they hoped, whereas now I think that this was a genius move in the long run. You see, the Nintendo Switch is not aiming to try and be the super ultimate high-end PC, it's not trying to be the biggest and best thing ever, it's not trying to have 4K graphics or virtual reality. Instead, it has the simple rule of having good games on the go, and I think that strategy has really worked. Like this right here is Diablo 3, a game that personally I've always loved, but having it on the Switch, this is now my very favorite way to play it, and that completely blows my mind. Honestly, I now have multiple high-level characters in just a couple weeks because I can't put it down. It is so cool to be able to just literally at any minute start slaying demons and getting new loot, and even do local co-op. I mean, seriously, every time my girlfriend comes over, she ended up buying the Diablo Switch, and we just keep playing it together, and it's so freaking cool. And I feel like that is the new strategy they're going for, is that Nintendo's not trying to replace your PlayStation 4, it's trying to sit on the desk next to it. And I think this is the reason it's managed to win over a lot of casual gamers. Now, I know a lot of people really despise that term, and everybody wants to pretend that they're the most hardcore dude ever, but I do think that casual gamers in general are still a separate and very vital demographic, and I think the fact that Nintendo is focusing on them in a different way. Instead of trying to make games that are really dumb and lame or overly cutesy, instead they've realized that the key to trying to get casual gamers on board is just to make really good games that you can play anywhere and love anywhere. And I think the fact that they managed to market this so clearly is very, very smart. And I think this is the reason that so many people like dads, people who work a lot, are getting completely on board with this. And also, they're reaching deep into demographics that everybody has ignored beforehand. Like, right now, almost every single hardcore PC gamer I've ever met is buying a Nintendo Switch. And it's not because of the exclusives. Yes, it's awesome to be able to play Zelda, but I know most people are buying it because it feels like a super awesome tablet that you can now play anywhere with legit controllers. That marketing messaging. That clear messaging of good games anywhere is something that I think is very, very appealing, despite the fact that it's not getting a ton of new releases. I know a ton of people right now are just buying it because of the cool catalog of games that already exist from last year, the ports we're getting like Wolfenstein, and the fact that you can play multiplayer shooters like Doom or Fortnite anywhere, anytime, as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection. Certain other games I think have tried this in the past. Like, an example that comes to mind is actually the Sega CD. Now, obviously this was an astronomical failure by Sega, and I think it was trying to basically aim at being the ultra hardcore experience, to couple with the more casual experience. A lot of people sort of forget this now, but the Genesis was everywhere. People had these things sitting, like sometimes people would have like 5 Genesises in one household. And I think the fact that this was so ubiquitous made it where they wanted to try and have this be for casuals and this be for hardcores. And instead, what you ended up with was a super expensive thing that nobody really wanted to bother with. And I think that in many ways, Nintendo is trying to avoid that. Nintendo has fallen down the pit hole of trying to separate out different audiences. Who's going to be the most tough? I think that in many ways, that's sort of the error they made with the Wii U and the 3DS, where it seemed like the Wii U was trying to have bigger and more expansive experiences, but at the cost of basically only being something you could play at home, which obviously was something limited by the technology, and also the fact that it still seemed like something that just seemed so useless. A lot of times, when a game came out on the Wii U, we would get a 3DS version of it. Like, look at Super Mario 3D Land versus 3D World. Well, spoilers, Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS is my favorite Mario ever. It is so fun, it's so addictive, and it's so easy. It's kind of fun to just pick it up and play it and not have to worry about dying or worrying about power-ups. And I think that they managed to really carve out this hardcore and casual audience separately, and now they've managed to combine them. Nintendo's really entered a space now with the Switch specifically where I feel like they've finally made their bed. They've managed to establish themselves with some big launch games, some cool stuff here and there, and now they've basically advertised themselves in just the right fashion. I think that they are going to achieve their goal. So in a lot of marketing talk right now, behind the scenes, Nintendo has said that their goal is to be a multi-Switch household system, where literally everybody in a household is going to have a couple of them. So obviously I have 3 roommates, and I think that their goal is to have it where I would have a Switch and all my roommates would have Switches as well, and we'd all play them simultaneously. And it feels like this goal, as impossible as it sounded to me a year ago, is actually getting closer and closer, because it's now becoming this thing that is very universally known as the pick up and play system. It's not about having the most crazy graphics or the gameplay that's going to push the boundaries of all of time like the way Red Dead Redemption does, but instead it's just fitting into this new spot that just means fun anywhere. In many ways, I really believe that this was a dangerous gamble on Nintendo's part, because if you think about it, they were basically trying to hope against all hope that every single one of their games was going to be big, successful, and very, very talked about, in an effort to try and market at this thing naturally, where everybody would end up wanting to buy a Switch simply because the games speak for themselves, and the ability to have it as a handheld or a console is a very marketable idea. And now, I guess I'm most curious to see how they try and expand on this going forward, because I really like the Nintendo Switch. I mean, it still kind of blows my mind that something that just came out in a couple months ago is already one of my favorite freaking consoles ever, but it's really hit that status. And so it makes me think, are we going to get a Switch Pro, a Switch Mini, or some sort of discounted version of this console to make it where it's even more ubiquitous? More of us are going to have an option to try and buy this for a friend, for our family, or maybe just so we could have multiple Switches in the house to play for ourselves. Can it keep selling this high? I think it will. I do believe that there's going to be lulls here and there, but as we get into the era of the Xbox 2 and the PlayStation 5, I think it really comes down to the fact that they're not playing by the same rules. Companies like Microsoft and Sony are certainly going to keep tearing each other to bits trying to be the one true king, and off to the side, I think that Nintendo is going to keep selling units month over month simply because they're going to be over here trying to be separate, but really cool in a totally different way. And I think that it could be a very good in the long run, as long as they don't suddenly try and start making like a Nintendo Switch Pro with exclusive games. But what do you think about this? Are you interested in buying the Nintendo Switch if you haven't already? And if you have, are you a little bit baffled about the fact that this little handheld just keeps freaking flying off store shelves month after month after month? And do you think that this has a bright future ahead? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Oh, hey, I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.